So, the third step in your basic weekly review is to make a plan. How do you do that? Let's talk about it today. Making a plan is sometimes the piece that we just procrastinate and put off because we really don't even know what we're doing. We don't know what it should look like, what should be on it. Maybe we've tried multiple planners, printable pages, and apps, and yet we still don't really know what we're doing. And so we don't know if we're doing it right. But doing it right doesn't quite matter as much as we think it does. In today's episode, we are going to talk about what to do once you've reviewed the week and you've looked at your calendar, how you go about putting that into a plan that's actually helpful and realistic for you and your current situation in the coming week. That's the real power and beauty of a weekly review, and we're going to delve into how to make that happen. Today's episode is an excerpt from a member-only mentoring session. We do these sessions on video every week, going into a specific element of the monthly topic, this month's being the weekly review, and really figuring out how to make it work in our own lives. So I hope that this excerpt helps you and lets you get a plan that is appropriate and applicable in your current life situation right now. Let's dig in. The weekly review, just to review, is the time that we set aside once a week, about half an hour. You can share it in the chat about how long your weekly review takes you, and you'll see that there's a wide spread of how much time. But about half an hour we need to reserve to do a weekly review where we look back on the previous week and what happened and what needs to happen this coming week based on what happened the last week. So we look over the past week and we don't just move forward fresh because we need to learn from what happened this last week. We need to take into account our actual situation, and we only really understand and see our actual situation if we take the time to think about it. So we need to reflect, pause, review, reflect, and then we can move forward more appropriately, because all too often our planning is based on wishful thinking or just escapist planning, where we treat the future as a blank slate and we'll be able to do whatever we want starting Monday. But the weekly review allows us to plan based on our actual current circumstances. So we reflect on the past week. We then look at the calendar for the upcoming week and maybe for the next month as well, so nothing takes us by surprise, and we're ready for those things that we are obligated to do, which should be on the calendar. And then we make a plan based on how things are actually going, what got dropped last week, and we can reflect and review, why did they get dropped? Did I drop something from this past week just because I really didn't have the time? Other things came up, and so I just need to move that forward and keep that on the list. That happens all the time. You just move it to the next list. And sometimes it's saying, well, I didn't do it last week because turns out for whatever reason I really don't want to do that thing. So you move it to this week's list, maybe with some adjustments, like making it smaller, changing what day you plan on doing it, giving yourself some incentive to get it done. Whatever it is, we're moving the things over that still need to be done, because most of us overplan and a lot of us also overcommit. And so there's going to be a lot of moving forward. The point of the review is not to see a perfectly completed plan, because that pretty much never happens. Um, has anyone ever looked back on the previous week and said, nailed it, 100% did all the things I wrote down on my plan? I mean, not me. Awesome for you if that is you, and we will celebrate with you. But for most of us, we put too many things on the plan. And it's not even so much about putting fewer things on the plan, although that can be a part of it to get realistic. But the reality is that we need to know what's on our plate, and we need to be able to flex. And being flexible and just staying on top of things means being aware and content to just keep moving, keep shuffling those tasks forward. And a part of the reward then is when you do actually get to it, it's going to be, you're going to celebrate. You're going to be pleased, more pleased, because you actually knocked it off. But you've been aware of it all along. It hasn't dropped off the radar. You're not ignoring it, which is a typical tactic, is to say, well, I'm just going to start ignoring that task because I'm not doing it. And then we feel stress and pressure and the overwhelmed feeling because we aren't aware of what our tasks actually are, and we aren't consciously just moving them on down the line. When to beat the overwhelm, to not give in to overwhelm as a temptation, we need to be looking at those things that didn't happen and decide intentionally that needs to move on to the next list, or I need to, stop being ridiculous and think that I'm actually going to do this thing. I don't have to do it. And that's why it keeps getting dropped, is because it's something I want to do, or I think I ought to do, kind of, but it actually doesn't fit my life right now. That's why I don't do it. And so I'm just going to actually drop it off my list because that's the best choice for me right now. These are the kinds of judgment calls and evaluations that the weekly review makes a time and place for. And so it is the time where we get fresh and current and aware of our plans. And it allows us to make plans that are realistic instead of just pretty. And a beautifully planned week. We don't just use the weekly review to set up a planner spread or page or fill out our planner in the future only as if moving forward a beautifully organized planner is going to work, when it hasn't ever. It is just a time to become aware of what's still on your plate, what needs to be moved forward, and then what needs to go on your plate based on that calendar. And then you have what you need to move forward. So you'll notice one of the key tactics and strategies that we continually return to, no matter what the topic here at Simply Convivial, is brain dumping. A brain dump is simply writing down whatever is in your head on paper. It helps us deal with information and thoughts and ideas and obligations in a concrete, clear way. And it is really clearing the mental clutter from our heads so that we can think better. I have a free guide called the Brain Dump Guide at simplyconvivial.com. that will walk you through the process of getting started with a thorough brain dump. It's like decluttering your head, and it will help you even more than decluttering a closet. You can find the link at the top of the YouTube channel, down below in the profile, down below in the description, or head to simplyconvivial.com and you'll see the button to get your free brain dump right away delivered to your inbox. And as always, repent, rejoice, repeat.